Welcome back to the deep dive. We are diving into a truly fascinating stack of sources today, and it's all custom tailored for you. Our focus is laser sharp on just one date, January 14th, 2026. So our mission today isn't about general trends, it's about tactical insight. We're working with a collection of notes from a listener, specifically an astrological forecast, and this wonderful allegorical narrative called a StoryScope.
Both from Tarot by High C.
Right. And we're trying to extract the most actionable nuggets from what seems to be a profound daily conflict. The tension between, well, unlimited vision and hard, immediate reality.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that the sources just define the central challenge of the day right away. It's expansion meets resistance.
Okay.
It's that moment where your biggest, boldest ideas might, violently conflict with the practical facts, the logistics.
So you have to choose one.
No, and that's the key. We're not being asked to choose. We're looking for that sweet spot, that narrow path where the optimism is still there, but it's anchored. It has some grounding.
I like that. So it's about effectiveness, not just feeling good. Okay, so we're going to unpack the cosmic influences pushing your thinking to the limit. We'll see what happens when the mind expands a little too quickly. Then we'll dive into the ground rules to counter that. And finally, we'll step into this allegorical city, Lathryn, to see how it all plays out, helping you find that middle ground. Okay, let's unpack this. The main driving force of the day, you're saying, is Mercury opposite Jupiter. That sounds intense.
Well,
Like putting a tiny blueprint next to a huge, sprawling map.
that's a perfect way to put it. It intense, but the potential is huge.
Tell me about that. The notes suggest this is an incredible time for vision.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Mercury is your immediate thoughts, your logic, your communication.
Yeah.
And Jupiter, well, Jupiter's expansion, faith, the big picture.
Right.
When they connect, you feel this incredible rush. Your mind just floods with bold ideas, long-term visions, and this confidence that you can do anything. You need to think outside the box. This is your day.
But it's an opposition, not a conjunction. What does that actually mean in terms of the energy?
Right. An opposition means they're staring each other down from across the sky, 180 degrees apart. And that creates friction, a real tug of war.
Okay.
So Mercury, which is usually all about the details, it gets kind of infected by Jupiter's size. It tries to operate on this grand scale, but it doesn't have Jupiter's wisdom to back it up. And that's where the warning comes in. This opposition stretches our plans. It stretches our commitments, often past their breaking point. The mind just reaches for more than it can hold.
But it feels justified at the time.
It feels completely justified because Jupiter's optimism makes that overreach feel like belief, like faith.
So how does that overreach show up in our daily lives? The sources kept mentioning sprawl in communication.
That's the perfect word, sprawl. When these two clash, our communication gets oversized, it gets messy, we start exaggerating without even realizing it. Conversations just sprawl.
You feel like you need to add every little detail.
Every tangent, every backstory, just to make a simple point. It's that feeling of over-explaining a decision that should be able to stand on its own.
Oh, I think we've all been there, trying to talk yourself into something or justifying it to someone else by adding so many layers, you bury the actual point.
Exactly. And the most dangerous trap is that we might overpromise in business, in a relationship, even just to ourselves, because that internal vision feels so convincing.
And the sources warn that your emotions can cloud your judgment here.
They absolutely can. That powerful Jupiterian phase takes over. Just because something feels fascinating and logical in your head does not mean it translates to reality. And that gap right there is the core danger.
But if we hold back, aren't we just being timid? How do we know we're not cutting off real potential by reining in a bold idea?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The sources don't say limit the vision. They say limit the commitment, at least until the vision is properly measured.
Okay, so it's not timidity.
It's tactical restraint. You have to temper the creativity with a bit of grounding before you get carried away. Think of facts as the counterweight that gives your vision mass, so it doesn't just float away. Let the facts lead. Let feelings inform, but not dominate.
Okay, so if the big cosmic push is to sprawl and over-explain, what are the immediate ground-level defenses? The notes gave a very actionable communication checklist for this.
This is the crucial grounding part.
Yes.
Because Mercury-Jupiter makes us so verbose, the checklist is all about editing, concision. Rule 1, review every important message, every email, every verbal commitment before you send it, before you make it.
Just pause.
Just pause. The goal is twofold. First, refine your point down to its essential elements. Cut everything that isn't absolutely relevant. Second, if you find yourself writing a huge paragraph to explain a simple decision, stop. A sound decision doesn't need an elaborate narrative to hold it up. If you feel that need to over-explain, it probably means you haven't clarified the core point, even for yourself.
That makes so much sense. The length of the story is often inversely proportional to the strength of the idea.
Right.
But let's look at the broader context. It's not just Mercury and Jupiter out there. The sources also note this other influence adding to the pushback. Sun square Eris.
Yes, Sun square Eris adds fuel to the fire. A square is friction, a challenge. The Sun is our identity, our authority. Eris is, well, she's discord, righteous rebellion.
So we feel a strong resistance to authority.
A very strong resistance, or to existing structures. You get this real urge to rebel against any perceived controls.
So on one hand, Jupiter is pushing us toward these grand, unmeasured plans, and on the other, Eris is telling us to rebel against anyone who tries to impose structure. I mean, that sounds like a formula for chaos.
It could be,
Okay.
but there are also stabilizing influences. We have the moon, our emotional landscape, in Sagittarius.
Okay.
And Sagittarius loves truth. It loves exploration. So this lets our minds wander and our perspective shift, but without pressure. The tone can be open, inquisitive, but not urgent. You don't have to commit right away.
And then there's the vital stabilizing influence that peaks overnight, which gives us the framework we need. Venus sextile Saturn.
This is such a beautiful contrast to all that friction. Venus is relationships, values, creative work. Saturn is structure, discipline, limits.
And a sextile is a good thing.
It's a harmonious aspect, an opportunity. This transit helps us bring structure to the things we value. Relationships, financial plans, creative projects, they all benefit when we can be both caring and practical.
Caring and practical.
Yeah, and the core insight here, and this sets up the allegory perfectly, is this. What we appreciate becomes clearer when we see its limits. If a friendship needs boundaries or a budget needs a line drawn, those limits don't restrict the value. They stabilize it. They let it grow within a sustainable frame.
That concept, that defining limits, actually clarifies value. That is exactly the lesson we're about to see in the StoryScope, The Weight of Tomorrow. Okay, let's move from the celestial math to the story. This StoryScope takes us to the city of Lathryn, which is a perfect mirror for someone's mind under Mercury opposite Jupiter.
It really is. Lathryn was legendary because it was literally built on ideas. The citizens believed, we said with pride, that these ideas were as solid as stone and mortar, not just, mist and fire.
But they weren't.
They weren't. The problem was they built before they measured, and the evidence was everywhere.
What did that look like?
Well, the notes describe towers rising like half-finished sentences, promises that were never fully fleshed out, bridges ersid impossibly far and just, ended in midair.
Wow.
Staircases climbed into nothing, just waiting for the future to tell them where the next floor should be. Every citizen carried this heavy notebook filled with plans for what the city would become, but they ignored what it actually was.
That is such a powerful image of sprawl. It's architectural chaos. And we meet two citizens who really embody these energies.
We do. First, you have Illyra. She's the cautious observer. She's the restrained Mercury, realizing that when words come too quickly, they run ahead of the truth.
And she's watching the city literally groan under the weight of all this potential.
Exactly. And then there's Tomar. He is the enthusiastic overcommitter. Yeah. Pure, unchecked Jupiterian faith. His eyes are bright, and he's insisting they have to commit fully. Never hesitate. For him, limits are a sign of failure.
Tomar is the guy saying, we can do all of this if we just believe.
Right. And so the council gathers, fueled by his enthusiasm, and they unveil plan after grander plan. The air itself gets thick, just heavy with promises and long explanations.
And this is the breaking point.
This is the breaking point. As those promises thicken the air, the ground beneath the high form trembles. This is the physical consequence. A crack splits the marble floor, and from it rises the keeper of measures.
The personification of practical limits, of Saturn.
Precisely. She's summoned when the collective structure can't bear any more weight, and she tells them, you are reaching beyond your grasp.
And of course, Tomar steps up.
Immediately. He insists they're capable, they've imagined it all, and this is the key. He says, we have explained every detail. He thinks the sheer length of the story should prove its worth.
And the keeper's response is the absolute core lesson of the day.
It is. It perfectly mirrors that advice to counter the sprawl. She just says, you have explained many things, you have not named your limits.
Oof, that's devastating.
It is. And the consequence is immediate. The city dims, walkways start to sag. The newest tower, the one built on pure hope, it physically leans, groaning under the weight of ideas it can't support.
And this is when Illyra has her big realization.
Yes. She says, "We've been trying to carry the future all at once. We are trying to hold the whole river, not just guide its flow."
Which leads to the keeper's metaphor for the day, which is just so powerful. Imagination is a river, but even rivers need banks. Without that structure, you don't get a useful waterway. You just get a destructive flood.
So how does Lathryn fix this massive collective overreach? They shift from grand promises to simple accountability.
Yep.
They call it open gathering.
Yep.
And it's intentionally a conversation, not a spectacle. People are told to speak briefly and listen closely. They're basically applying that communication checklist.
And what's the key action they take?
They name their assumptions aloud. Not problems, but necessary foundations. Things like, this will take years, not months.
Yeah.
This requires skills we don't have yet. And the big one, this part of the vision can wait.
Grounding the future in the present. I see.
Exactly.
And Tamar has this transformation, which is a really hopeful part of the story for us.
It is. He steps forward, finally finding that restraint. And he's truly honest. He admits, I promised more than I knew how to deliver.
But he still believes in the vision.
He does. And the keeper gives us that necessary distinction. She says, belief is not the problem. Confusion is. Belief is the fuel. But confusion is the lack of structure, the messiness that makes the whole thing wobble. By getting rid of the confusion, Lathryn has this profound shift.
The city didn't grow faster.
No, but it grew stronger. Foundations were reinforced. Conversations got shorter and sharper because they stopped sprawling. And Illyra, the cautious one, she finds this new pleasure in a slower unfolding. Gratitude replaced urgency.
That's the goal, isn't it? Steady, satisfying progress. The final image from the StoryScope is so powerful.
It is.
The city's banners no longer showed these finished, overwhelming wonders, but pathways. Each one clearly marked with the next doable step. And the city finally slept without trembling, dreaming not of everything it could be, but of what it was actively, solidly becoming. So what does this all mean for you today, January 14th, 2026? This deep dive reveals a simultaneous push to think as big as you possibly can, to let your imagination soar, and this absolute necessity for immediate, intense restraint in how you talk and what you commit to.
The goal is to build banks for your river.
Right. So your grand vision doesn't become a destructive flood.
And if we connect this back to that Venus sextile Saturn influence, the idea that what we appreciate becomes clearer when we see its limits, that is paramount today.
So what's the final thought for our listener?
I'd say think about that single grand idea you're trying to carry all at once right now. The project, the commitment, the expectation that feels like it's making your own structure groan, just like Lathryn's towers. What is the single first doable step you need to name? And how might naming its limit today, the cost, the timeline, the skill required, how might that actually make the whole journey more organized, less stressful, and in the end, far more satisfying?
Something to mull over as you build your own pathway toward tomorrow. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.